Morning guys, happy Friday. I apologise for the noise. That is my decrepit heater over there because it is absolutely parky in here this morning. But what I'd like to do today is talk to you a little bit about how I ended up being a knife maker. I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this, but we haven't got hours. Where did it start? Well, when I was a wee lad, a little bit shorter than what I am now, I would always get my granddad to take me to the knife shops in Sheffield. Now, my granddad was a tool maker, as some of you know, so it wasn't very difficult to get him to take me round the knife shops. Now, in Sheffield at the time, you know what I mean, in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, there were legitimate knife shops that sold, you know, nothing but knives, which sounds crazy these days. I mean, there's one or two left, not many. But at the time, there was 3 or 4 in Sheffield. There was also a great gun shop in Sheffield that I forget the name of. It's actually where I bought my first air rifle, but that's another story. Anyway, I would get my granddad to take me around the knife shops. I'd save my pocket money, and it were inevitable that I'd come home with a knife. My dad never minded. Whenever we went on holiday as a family, I would always try and find the knife shops, because again, when you went to the coast, there was always knife shops. I didn't always buy the best knife, and that's one of the reasons why I hate Opinels. But I very quickly gravitated towards Victorinox, to the classic Swiss Army knives, because they had a load of gadgets on them, which as a boy you love. They weren't too expensive, and they were really, you know, really sturdy bits of kit. You could abuse them, which boys do, you know. Boys don't look after knives very well. So the Victorinox was my pocket carry back then. Still is to a certain extent, although I do carry, you know, my own work predominantly now. But if I need a multi-tool, it is a Victorinox. You know, I've got a ton of them. I collected Victorinox for a long time. I've got some very nice custom pieces as well, from people like Andy at Beaver Blade Works. So the Victorinox was kind of my entry into collecting. I remember on my 18th birthday, my granddad did buy me, he bought me a Swiss Champ that I still have, still in the box. I carried that, you know, that chunk of Swiss steel for a long time, but after I lost my granddad, it became too sentimental for me to carry. So that's in a box in the safe in the house. But as I progressed into, you know, earning my own money, I started looking at American knife makers and American knife making companies and buying through mail order. No internet, remember, it were all done through catalogues. Buying through mail order stuff from Garber and from Cold Steel when they were still made in America, and you know, SOG and companies like that, Blackjack in Japan, which sadly is no longer with us. And buying those kind of knives, and also trading knives, buying and selling knives. At the time, the early days of the internet, moving forward a little bit, the early days of the internet on eBay, you could buy and sell knives on eBay, not a problem, and I could buy knives in from America quite easily. And all the time I'm learning about knives, buying books about Randall and, you know, Loveless and people like this. So my knowledge about steel and knives increased throughout my 20s, throughout my 30s. I was always, you know, looking at designs for knives and you know, storing facts about knives, and knew what I liked and what I liked to carry and outdoors. I mean, I've always been into bushcraft, even before kind of bushcraft was a phrase. I was always out, you know, camping or building dens, or out with my air rifle hunting rabbits, and you know, stuff like that, building shelters with my friends or on my own. It's a story I've told before, and that's kind of a sidebar. But the knife thing, it's always been with me. You know, right from learning how to sort of weld two bits of steel together with my granddad, I guess. But back in 2014, I met a guy called Paul Whetstone. Now, Paul was a knife maker. He doesn't do so much anymore. He makes the occasional Bowie, but he is one of these guys who's just a savant with steel. He can, if you can dream it and, you know, just sketch it up on back of a fag packet, Paul will fabricate it for you. And he loves knives, loves the outdoors. So me and Paul hit it off really quickly. I had just set up a small leatherwork company called Fieldcraft Leather. Some of you may remember that. And Paul was looking for somebody to do his sheaths, which I happily obliged. And me and Paul got on really well. We still do, still chat to him quite regularly. But I very quickly started pestering him to make me designs that I'd drawn. So he did me a couple of designs, and then he sort of said, you know, why don't I just teach you how to make your own designs? So I kind of did an apprenticeship with him. I used to go over to his workshop every Saturday morning, pay him in tea and bacon sandwiches and leatherwork. And over about 6 months, he taught me, you know, he taught me the fundamentals of knife making. He taught me how to grind, he taught me about heat treat, he taught me about tempering, he taught me about edge geometry, he taught me about handle ergonomics. He taught me so much, did Paul. Some of it was about knives. But then one day, I got to his workshop, and my trusty old beast 3 horsepower belt grinder that Paul built, I might add, and a propane forge and some other bits and pieces were on a pallet. Paul basically said, they're yours, get yourself gone, and come back when you can make decent knives that I want to buy. So that was probably 2015, maybe 2016 by then. So I was coming in here on a weekend, on an evening after work, and it became a nice little hobby that paid for itself and paid for a few bits and pieces. I was still trading knives at the time, flipping American, high-end American stuff. Was well known on the Facebook pages as a trader of knives and a maker of sort of things. I didn't just do leatherwork. I used to do paracord bracelets and bits and pieces, stuff like that. You know, and I was trading gear as well, trading jackets and bushcraft gear. So I kind of already had a reputation of that sort of seller of things. So when I started selling knives and people started buying the knives and, you know, spreading the word, if you like, it progressed nicely, you know. And in that time, I got to know a lot of people around the world. I was fortunate enough to travel to Sweden several times and get involved with Wetterling's axes and get involved at Mora Knife. I had some great friends in Sweden, still do. And I'm learning all the time and kind of storing facts and figures in the back of my head and trying things out here. You know, trying out new grinds and this, that and other. And then we get to 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. I was working on new build houses at the time, and the sites got shut. The building sites all shut down, the construction sites. So the furlough money had not been put in place for self-employed people, and we weren't very stable financially. I mean, we were doing all right, but we'd not got a big nest egg put by, and no one knew how long the lockdown was going to last. So I was, you know, selling 2 or 3 knives a month, making stuff for people, and I just put a call out on my Facebook groups that I was on if anybody wanted a knife making, and I got like 5 orders that day. So I ordered some steel, and, rushed through those orders and sent them out. Made a few other knives, and I'm designing stuff and making fixed blades and experimenting with new materials and so on and so forth. And I got a little bit of furlough money through. The government had sorted out a little bit of furlough money for self-employed people, and I got a check for £3,000 through, and I ploughed it straight into my evening kiln. The evening kiln literally took all that money, but it allowed me to do stainless then. So I started offering stainless, which kind of bumped up into another market. The folding knives, the jackrabbits were doing really well, they still are. And I'm designing other things, and I'm talking to people, they're asking me to design things. Started collaborating on designs with a few people like Joe Price, people like John Bow from Wild Way Bushcraft, and little by little, kind of got a little bit of momentum in the space and got well known, and my Instagram grew. I built a website, and then John very kindly asked me if I would trade with them as part of the Wild Way Bushcraft group at the Bushcraft show, which was kind of scary and kind of daunting. But I'd already done the first Sharp show by then, so I kind of had an idea how to lay a table out and whatnot. And Beth's really good at putting a display on. So I got Beth's help, and we bought some cabinets, and that kind of, again, was the next rung on the ladder. So before I knew it, 3 years had rolled by, and I'd not even thought about going back to being a tiler, because I was doing this. I was so focused on doing this and so busy and enjoying it so much that I never really gave, unless coming towards the end of the month and the bank balance was a little bit low, and it's like, ooh, should I make that call? Should I make that call and go back and do a couple of days on the sites? And I still have them. Days. I mentioned it in my last video. I still have them days where I think, am I doing the right thing? Am I, pursuing this path for the right reasons? Am I just doing this for myself? Probably. I am doing this for myself because I love it. It's a dream for me to do this. It's a dream for me to make knives. That little boy, that 7-year-old little boy, looking through the window of the knife shop in Sheffield, he'd have been amazed by 51-year-old me now making knives full time. I think he'd have been proud of me. And that's what I've got to remember when times are tough, that I dreamed of this. And sometimes dreams have scary bits. Sometimes dreams are a little bit daunting. But would I give it all up and go to a 9 to 5? I don't think I would. I don't think I would. I don't think I could. I don't think I could work for somebody else again. I'm too grumpy. But that's where, it's 2026, coming up to my 6th anniversary full time, coming up to another season of shows, and it's great. I love it, and I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. And I want to just thank you all. I think you're all awesome. Everybody who buys a t-shirt off me, everybody who buys a hat off me, everybody who buys a knife off me, everybody who just comes to say hello at a show, it all motivates me to keep going. And you guys are a part of this just as much as me, because if you weren't, sending me silly memes and asking me to come up with crazy designs for stuff that's your dream, I wouldn't be able to do this. I'd still be slinging tiles in somebody's downstairs bog. Right guys, have a great weekend, look after yourselves, and I will speak to you again next week hopefully. Cheers.